Let's turn this into a perfect sanctuary for a chameleon. I'm going to show you the steps that I'm going to go through to do that. All right, so here is our canvas here, and there are 3 things that we're going to have to make sure this provides. First of all, it's got to be a forest edge. Forest edge means that you have open area, and then you've got some area that's heavy foliage where the chameleon can hide in. So, first thing I need to make sure we provide is an open area where the chameleon can bask and where it can get UVB. The second thing we've got to do is make sure we give it a place where it can feel secure, meaning hidden. So a thick foliage area that the chameleon can fit its entire body behind. And 3, it's got to look awesome. The whole reason why we're doing it is for our enjoyment. And so, yes, we've got to provide the chameleon what they need, but we are also part of the equation. It's got to look awesome. It's got to be fun for us. So once we provide for the chameleon's needs, don't be shy about putting plants in there that bring you happiness. So let's go ahead and talk about the strategy for number 1, creating that forest edge, the open area. Back left corner, right up there, that's where the basking bulb is going to be. And so this area is going to have to be open for them to be able to bask. And I have the decision to make, either have the UVB right back here or up here. The only difference that has is where I put the basking branch for them to be under. When I'm talking about plant selection, I just have to make sure that I leave this area, let's say the top 9 inches, open. And so where those branches go is actually for another day. I don't have to worry about it so much when I'm dealing with plant selection. Now, what I like to do with these wide format enclosures is that I have one half be heavily planted and the other half being sparsely planted. And so not only do you get a forest edge from top to bottom, but you also get a forest edge from left to right. So what you're going to see in my selection is that I'm going to be having a thick plant here, a thick low light plant here that's under the thick plant, a plant that looks nice back here that likes bright light, and a plant over here that's going to be able to deal with the heat from the basking bulb. Now, you don't ever want to put a plant directly under the basking bulb because that's too much for any plant, but I want to be strategic as to the plants that go in the general vicinity that they can handle a little bit more warm conditions. And you don't have to imagine it on a blank canvas. I am going to go ahead and give you a tour of the Arboreal XL enclosure where I've implemented this exact strategy. And you can see that that strategy that I explained to you is implemented in this enclosure. Over on this side, we have a dense foliage. That's a Cebu blue pothos, and it trails all the way down to the forest floor. And it's even rooting itself in the floor. In the back over there, that's a Tradescantia nanuk. That is for visual appeal, but it also helps. You see that thick area back there? All the chameleon has to do is go behind there, and they can feel as secure as they need to feel. Over there is the open area for them to bask, and here's where they can get their UVB. Over here, I've got a Hoya. This is also called the waxy plant because the leaves are, they have like a waxy coating. They're very thick. And so these can handle a little bit more of the desiccated conditions. And what that means is that the leaves are a little bit tougher. And so when I have the basking bulb up there, it's not going to affect this as much as it would, say, a thin leaf plant like this. Now, look at that in the middle. Oof, that is an alocasia. Beautiful jewel alocasia. And, oh, I got to show you this. Look at this incredible, I can't even, gonna try. Of course, it's got to open up the other side, but there is an incredible leaf. It's hard to see. I don't want to move it so much because it's so beautiful. It's an incredible, incredible plant there. That plant is in the middle. It's kind of a centerpiece plant, and that is for visual appeal. Now, those do get big enough that the chameleons can actually climb up the stalks and sleep on them. We'll go back here. And you see that I have the maidenhair fern here. It's kind of hard to see because the alocasia is taking over, but that provides some cover for anything that I have on this forest floor. In back, I have a philodendron, and this thing, when it matures, will come up along the sides up there to nicely frame the entire branch network that I've got there, because I'm going to have it come all the way across here. And so don't get too caught up in the details here. What I want you to see is that's what I mean when I say a dense foliage. Up here is what I mean when I say an open area. And back there is what I mean when I say a visual interest plant for us. And so let's go over how I'm going to implement those with my Arboreal L enclosure and the plants that I've selected for that. All right, so I am going to share with you my plant choices and why I chose them. First of all, perhaps the most important plant is going to be that heavy foliage one. And so you need one that has a lot of leaves, a lot of coverage. Often pothos are selected, many varieties of pothos. In this case, I've decided on a satin pothos. It's actually not the same genus as the regular pothos. This is a Scindapsus, but it kind of looks the same. It's going to have the same function of providing a nice wall of leaves that the chameleon can hide behind. Now, all of these plants that I have right here, I've gotten them for their potential, so they're not showing the best that they're going to be. But let me tell you, I know what they're going to turn into, and so this is going to be good. For the plant of interest, this is my favorite. I am going to be using a Nepenthes Miranda. This is a tropical pitcher plant, and you don't see pictures here, but I'll put up a picture of what it's going to look like once it's happy. But this one is going to produce some pretty large pitchers, and this will either be here on the back or over on the left side, whereas I'm going to have the satin pothos, the big one, over on this side. And this is going to be the area where I'm going to just put all sorts of foliage back there. So I'm going to have to find another heavy foliage plant that I can put right here. And you can see how they will grow together to provide a thick foliage area, much like is in the Arboreal XL that I've got. Now, somewhere in this enclosure, there is going to be my favorite, my lemon lime prayer plant. And so that guy is going to be in there. I don't want to put them under the Scindapsus, the satin pothos, because the satin pothos is going to get so thick that it's not going to be a whole lot of light getting below it. And so generally, like I've done on this one, I don't want to put a plant under there, except something on the forest floor that will grow up to meet it. You see, you hear about how chameleon should have a thick foliage cage, but you have to keep in mind that anything that is under that thick foliage is not going to get enough light to survive. And so having thick foliage is not about having a whole lot of plants. It's about having the right plants. And if you're doing a setup in a 2x2 by 4 foot tall cage, having two large plants on either side so they grow together in the middle is a great way to do it. Any of the plants you put below that, they're not going to do so well, because success with the plants above here means there's no light, i.e. no food, for the plants below. Now for the forest floor, I'm going to have some plants that cover the area down there, but I also want to have a centerpiece plant that's going to grow up and provide visual appeal. And that, of course, is going to be my alocasias. This is the one I have. This is a Alocasia amazonica, and this is going to be beautiful. These grow about 2 to 3 feet tall. Some of the alocasias will grow way bigger than this enclosure, and I don't want to use those. This one is perfectly sized for this enclosure. It will grow, it will be able to spread out, it will be a great visual centerpiece. The thing we have to keep in mind is most of these plants are too big for our enclosures. They will grow beyond our enclosure. Like pothos, that's like a 40 to 60 foot vine. So, I mean, that absolutely, if it's happy, will grow beyond the size of this enclosure. Now, that is one thing that I want to do, is I want to show you what golden pothos looks like when it's planted in the soil. And this is the perfect enclosure to do that. It's got a lot of root room. And so I'm going to be taking a cutting of a huge plant that I have. I'm going to be putting it in here. It will take a while before it establishes itself, but the advantage of you being here with me on my YouTube channel is you're going to be able to see it as it grows. In the meantime, I am going to be having this Philodendron mexicanum, and this is going to go and grow along one side. So I will have this growing along one side and the pothos growing along the other side. Very soon, you're going to be able to see that the pothos is going to get so big, because it's got the root room, that it's going to pretty much take over the entire enclosure if I let it. So once I show you how big it can get, there will be a lot of trimming and pruning. It'll still produce big leaves, but I'm going to have to cut it back. I don't have 60 feet to allow it to grow to its absolute full potential. Now, knowing that plant selection, I know enough that I can start branching my enclosure. I will be adding some more plants, but those can be added afterwards. This is all I need to know to start branching, and I'm going to do that in the next vlog. So I am very excited that this enclosure is starting to come together. And so please join me in the next vlog where the branching goes in, the pots go in, and actually to finish the branching, the plants need to go in. So tomorrow's vlog is going to be filled with a lot of progress. Now someone's going to be asking, well, what about the substrate? Yeah, when you're done with the drainage and you're done with the bottom of the enclosure, you start to think, I should do the substrate next, which is actually what I thought. That was my initial thought. But then I realized you don't want to do that because you're going to be doing so much of putting in branches and putting in plants. You're going to be clipping zip ties and such, and you don't want all that to get into your substrate. So we're going to be doing all that while the enclosure bottom is a bare floor. So it makes it really easy to clean up. Once it's cleaned up, then we'll put in the substrate. I hope that going through these examples is helpful for you, because all of these principles are things that can be applied to any cage shape or size. And you may be thinking, I'm new to plants, I don't know which plants to use. Go to ChameleonAcademy.com/plants and you're going to see a whole study on plants. You see the ones that I recommend, the ones that I've used, and they are commonly found. And I gotta tell you that once you get involved with plants, it is such a fun thing. It's like a whole new world that you get to explore. And every single plant is as unique as every single chameleon. They have conditions they like, ways to use them. And it's just another way that being interested in chameleons connects you to the rest of the world. And so this is why it's so easy to get excited about working with chameleons. If you're interested in one of these enclosures yourself, they're available through Custom Reptile Habitats. Look for the Chameleon Academy Arboreal line, and a link is in the description below. Have a great Saturday, everybody. Take care of yourself, be excellent to each other, and I'll see you next time.